What's up, guys? Anthony here. In my last video, I talked about church trauma, and because there's so much to unpack there, I feel like I'm gonna make multiple videos about it. And honestly, there's different layers to church trauma, right? And everybody has different experiences. But I want to thank Moxie's Mountain Herbs for this comment because, it mentioned something in there that I also wanted to hit on and touch on. And just recently, I used the analogy of a hospital with my wife, and that, most times that just like when you go to an emergency room and you're bleeding or you're broken, arm, or you have respiratory issues, right? Is that their job is to make sure that you're stable first. They control the bleeding, they give you oxygen, whatever the case is. Once you're stable, then they start asking you questions like, what happened? Where were you? Do you have insurance? Et cetera, right? And that's not how it kind of goes in church. You usually get the questionnaire first, and so they know where to put you. And that's not very good. But the second half of this message is really caught my eye, right? Which is, it says, don't look at the folks around you, they'll disappoint you, right? That is a big part of one of my triggers, right? I'm not saying, I'm not coming at you, Moxie Mountain, right? It's just that it really, brings to light certain issues that most people get triggered from, right? Is because if you didn't grow up in church, right, and you don't know what it is to be spiritually mature, you don't know what it is to, have these fruits of the Spirit, right, then you aren't aware that you're supposed to look at God and not the people around you, right? And I would always get told and say, well, you go to church to look for God, not to look at the people, right? I understand that. That comes later as you start to mature in the Spirit and God reveals to you certain convictions that I'm like, okay, well, I need to be better in this. I need to be a little tougher when it comes to, pushing on for God, right? But for somebody that's brand new, that has no knowledge of any of that stuff, right? For them to come to a church expecting to feel vulnerable, expecting to see God, as she says here, then you get greeted by these people that are like gatekeepers to Jesus, gatekeepers to wisdom, gatekeepers to God, and that's not very nice. That can cause a lot of damage to somebody, which it has caused a lot of damage, which is why tons of people are refusing to go back to a church. It's unbelievable, and it's amazing to me that a community that's based on belief that God can change you can't change themselves. How crazy is that? Jesus said it. It's like, take the log out of your eye before you take one out of mine. It's crazy. I don't mean to be super emotional, super passionate, but I've always been passionate about that. Once I've experienced something like that, it's like my heart goes out to those people. Is that there's just so many people that have been hurt by, leadership, have been hurt by hypocrisy, or they call them Pharisees back in Jesus' time, but that same Pharisaic spirit reigns right now when it comes to church. So I wanted to share an analogy too that I shared with my wife, that what it feels like nowadays when it comes to church is that they're treating God, or they're treating Jesus like a celebrity, right? And if you think about a celebrity, the celebrity goes everywhere with security. You have Jesus or God in the middle, and then you have all of these learned Christians that have been in the message for a long time, surrounding Jesus. And if you aren't living up to certain expectations or certain standards, right, you can't get to Jesus because you have to go through their requirements. You have to go through their standards, right? And man, how sad that is. When we're struggling, when we are hit rock bottom, when we need something, but then it turns out we can't get there because we don't look like we're supposed to look, or we don't act like we're supposed to act, or we're not a member of this particular church, or we don't have any status like we ought to. And so that is heartbreaking. That is because a lot of times we don't know if that is our last chance. We don't know if that's the final straw, right? We don't know what's going on in people's lives. So can you imagine if they go seeking for God and we can't get past this little circle of security? Say, who knows if that's probably the last day on earth? Because we're going there assuming anybody can come to Jesus. It's preached so much. Anybody can come to God. Anybody can find healing. Anybody can be saved, right? We have to do better as a church community, loving people. And Jesus hung out with sinners. So why is it that we're supposed to have Jesus in our heart, and yet when somebody does something bad or somebody does something that isn't up to God's standards, right, then we get shunned or we get outcasted or we get put aside? It's supposed to be the opposite of that. When somebody messes up, you bring them in closer. You love them and let them know it's going to be all right. And that is what Jesus does, not what everybody else has been doing. So yeah, guys, that was just my little tidbit video for today. I could keep going, right? But I don't want to have a 30-minute video here. That's why I'm making different parts. If you're related, comment or like or share it if you have somebody that, would benefit from it. And appreciate you guys stopping by, and stay tuned for part 3. All right, guys. Thank you. God bless, and have a great night.